There is one emotion that has silently ruled humanity for thousands of years. It has destroyed kingdoms, broken families, ended friendships, ruined brilliant minds, and perhaps it has controlled more of your life than you realize. That emotion is anger. Most people believe anger begins the moment someone insults them, the moment they are betrayed, ignored, disrespected, or treated unfairly. But after years of studying the human psyche, I reached a conclusion that completely changed my understanding of human behavior. People do not become angry because of what happens to them. They become angry because something inside them was already waiting to be awakened. This distinction changes everything, because if another person truly possessed the power to create your emotions, then your inner peace would never belong to you. It would belong to everyone else. Anyone could steal it. Anyone could manipulate it. Anyone could control your mind simply by saying the right words. Yet this is exactly how millions of people live. Their mood depends upon strangers. Their happiness depends upon approval. Their peace depends upon circumstances. Without realizing it, they have surrendered control of their inner world. And the tragedy is that most never notice. Every morning they wake believing they are free, while carrying invisible chains forged by other people's opinions. Today, I want to show you why anger is rarely about the person standing before you. It is almost always about the unconscious parts of yourself that remain unseen. And once you understand this, you will never experience anger in the same way again. Because anger is not your enemy, it is your teacher. Every emotional reaction carries a message. Most people become so distracted by the person who triggered them that they never read the message itself. Imagine for a moment that someone throws a stone into a calm lake. The stone creates ripples. But notice something important. The stone does not create the water. It merely disturbs what was already there. Human emotion behaves in exactly the same way. When someone insults you, they do not create insecurity, they reveal it. When someone rejects you, they do not create abandonment, they awaken it. When someone disrespects you, they expose a wound that has not yet healed. The event is merely the stone. The emotion belongs to the lake. For years, I observed individuals who insisted that difficult people were responsible for their suffering. They spoke endlessly about toxic friends, cruel parents, manipulative partners, arrogant co-workers. Certainly, these people existed. Some behaved selfishly, others behaved maliciously. But I noticed something fascinating. Two individuals could experience exactly the same insult, yet respond completely differently. One became furious, the other smiled calmly. One carried resentment for years, the other forgot the event within minutes. The situation remained identical. Only the inner world changed. This led me toward one unavoidable conclusion. External events possess far less power than the unconscious meaning we attach to them. Meaning, not circumstance, determines suffering. Suppose a stranger criticizes your appearance. If you secretly fear not being enough, their words wound you deeply. But if that insecurity no longer exists, the same criticism loses its power. Nothing changed externally, only your relationship with yourself. This is why psychological freedom can never be found by controlling people. It can only be found by understanding yourself. Unfortunately, the ego dislikes this truth. The ego prefers blaming because blame feels easier than responsibility. If another person causes your anger, then you never have to examine yourself. The unconscious remains hidden. The wound remains untouched. Life continues exactly as before, yet healing never begins. One of the greatest illusions of the human mind is believing peace will arrive once difficult people disappear. It never happens. Because another difficult person always appears. Another disagreement, another criticism, another disappointment. Life continuously presents opportunities for unconscious material to surface, not as punishment, but as invitation. Every emotional trigger asks one simple question: What inside you still seeks healing? Very few people answer honestly. Instead, they build identities around their wounds. I have trust issues. I hate people. I can never forgive. I've always had a temper. Notice how easily temporary pain becomes permanent identity. The unconscious loves repetition. If left unnoticed, it repeats the same emotional patterns throughout life. Different faces, different cities, different relationships, exactly the same suffering. Why? Because the lesson has not yet been learned. Life changes the actors, never the script, until consciousness finally intervenes. I often describe this process as projection. Projection occurs whenever we attribute to another person something that actually belongs within ourselves. Imagine carrying a room full of broken mirrors. Everywhere you look, reality appears distorted. You blame the world. Yet the distortion was never outside. It traveled with you. The psyche behaves similarly. Suppressed fear becomes suspicion. Suppressed shame becomes criticism. Suppressed insecurity becomes arrogance. Everything hidden within seeks expression, whether consciously or unconsciously. Many people believe anger makes them strong. I discovered the opposite. Uncontrolled anger often reveals hidden helplessness. The louder the reaction, the deeper the wound. Observe a mature tree during a storm. The branches move, the leaves shake, yet the roots remain still. Now observe a weak tree. Every gust threatens to uproot it. Human beings are no different. Psychological strength is not measured by how loudly you respond. It is measured by how deeply you remain rooted within yourself. A person who truly knows themselves cannot easily be manipulated. Insults lose their poison. Criticism becomes information. Praise no longer becomes addiction, because their identity no longer depends upon the changing opinions of others. This does not mean they stop feeling emotion. Far from it. They simply stop becoming possessed by it. There is an enormous difference between experiencing anger and becoming anger. Most people never notice the transition. An emotion appears. Moments later, it has completely taken control of their consciousness. Words are spoken, decisions are made, relationships are damaged. Only afterward does reason return. Then comes regret. But regret cannot erase what unconsciousness has already created. This is why awareness is so essential. Not because awareness prevents emotion, but because awareness creates space between emotion and action. Within that space, freedom is born. The person who masters this space can no longer be controlled by the behavior of others. They remain calm, not because life becomes easier, but because they finally understand where true power has always existed. It was never in controlling the world. It was in understanding the mind that experiences it. There is a question I often encouraged my patients to ask themselves whenever anger arose. Not, who made me angry? But rather, what inside me has just been awakened? At first, this question feels uncomfortable. The ego immediately resists it. It whispers, "The problem is obvious. Look what they did." Anyone would react this way. And perhaps that is true. Perhaps anyone would react. But not everyone reacts in the same way. That difference reveals everything. Imagine two people standing before the same mirror. One smiles, the other becomes furious. The mirror has done nothing, it merely reflects. Human beings often function in exactly this manner. Certain individuals unknowingly become mirrors for parts of ourselves we have spent years avoiding. The arrogant person may awaken our hidden insecurity. The selfish person may expose our inability to establish boundaries. The dishonest person may force us to confront our own fear of betrayal. Life continually places mirrors before us. Most people spend their lives trying to break those mirrors. Very few pause long enough to ask, what am I actually seeing? This is where true psychological transformation begins, because the moment you stop blaming the mirror, you become free to understand yourself. One of the greatest misunderstandings about emotional maturity is the belief that mature people never experience anger. This is false. They experience it, but they refuse to surrender their consciousness to it. There is an enormous difference between feeling an emotion and allowing that emotion to become your identity. Think of the sky during a storm. Dark clouds appear. Thunder shakes the air. Rain falls heavily. Yet above those clouds, the sky itself remains unchanged. Your consciousness is like that sky. Thoughts are clouds, emotions are storms, but your deepest awareness remains untouched. The tragedy is that most people mistake the storm for the sky. They say, "I am angry," instead of saying, "Anger is passing through me." Notice how different these statements feel. The first creates identity. The second creates observation. Observation is the beginning of freedom. Identity becomes the beginning of attachment. Every emotion wishes to convince you that it will last forever. It never does. Even the greatest rage eventually becomes memory. Even the deepest sorrow changes form. Nothing in the psyche remains permanent. Only awareness quietly observes every passing experience. When you recognize this, something extraordinary happens. You stop fighting emotions. Instead, you begin understanding them. This was one of the greatest lessons the unconscious ever taught me. Every emotion carries information. Fear says, something feels uncertain. Sadness says, something meaningful has been lost. Joy says, life is expanding. And anger. Anger often says, a boundary has been crossed, or a hidden wound has been touched. Notice that anger itself is not the enemy. Ignoring its message is. Many people suppress their anger because they fear appearing aggressive. Others express it violently because they fear appearing weak. Both extremes miss the deeper purpose. The unconscious never asks you to suppress emotion, nor does it ask you to obey every emotion. It asks you to understand it. Understanding transforms reaction into wisdom. I once observed a man who became furious whenever someone questioned his intelligence. The smallest criticism produced enormous rage. At first he blamed everyone around him. They constantly disrespect me. They never appreciate me. They always underestimate me. But as we explored his unconscious, a forgotten memory slowly emerged. As a child, every mistake had been met with humiliation. Every failure became proof that he was inadequate. Years passed. The classroom disappeared. The teachers disappeared. Yet the emotional wound remained alive. Now, every disagreement unconsciously became another classroom. Every criticism became another humiliation. His anger had never been about the present. It had always belonged to the past. This is why unconscious wounds are so dangerous. They disguise themselves as current reality. You believe you are reacting to today's situation. In truth, you may be reliving yesterday's pain. The past possesses extraordinary influence until it is brought into consciousness. Only then does its control begin fading. This is why I often said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Most people believe fate is something external. I discovered that much of what we call fate is simply unconscious repetition. The same relationship, different person, the same betrayal, different friend, the same disappointment, different workplace. Life appears repetitive because the unconscious keeps searching for completion. The lesson returns again and again until awareness finally recognizes it. Have you ever noticed that certain types of people always seem to provoke you? Perhaps it is arrogance, perhaps dishonesty, perhaps criticism. Ask yourself honestly, why these people, why not others? The answer rarely lies in them alone. Somewhere within your own psyche, there exists unfinished work. This realization should never become self-condemnation. It should become liberation, because what belongs to your inner world can be transformed. What belongs entirely to others cannot. The moment you understand this, you stop wasting energy trying to control impossible things. You begin directing that energy inward, toward healing, toward awareness, toward freedom. And slowly, the people who once controlled your emotions begin losing their power, not because they changed, because you did. A peaceful mind is not created by surrounding yourself with perfect people. Such people do not exist. Peace is created by developing a consciousness that no longer depends upon perfection in others. That is true emotional independence. And once you taste that freedom, you realize something remarkable. The world has not become kinder. People have not suddenly become wiser. You have simply stopped allowing unconscious reactions to dictate your life. This is the first step toward becoming impossible to provoke, not by hardening your heart, but by understanding it. There is an invisible force behind nearly every moment of anger. Most people never notice it. They believe their emotions begin with another person's words, another person's behavior, another person's betrayal. But beneath every emotional reaction stands a silent figure, the ego. The ego is not your enemy. Without it, you could not function in the world. You would not know your name, your responsibilities, your place in society. The ego gives structure to consciousness. Yet problems arise when the ego mistakes itself for the whole personality. It begins believing, I must always be right. I must always be respected. I must never appear weak. I must protect my image at all costs. Notice something carefully. Every one of these statements revolves around protection. The ego spends enormous amounts of energy defending an identity that is constantly changing. And because it lives in fear, it reacts quickly, emotionally, aggressively, whenever reality threatens the image it has created. Imagine building a magnificent castle from sand. You spend years shaping every wall, every tower, every entrance. Then someone walks by and accidentally touches one side. Immediately, you panic, not because the touch was powerful, but because the structure was fragile. The same principle applies to identity. The more fragile your sense of self, the more violently you defend it. True confidence behaves differently. It requires no constant protection. It does not collapse under criticism. It does not demand endless approval. It remains stable because it is rooted in truth rather than appearance. Throughout my work, I noticed that the calmest individuals were rarely those with the easiest lives. In fact, many had endured tremendous suffering, loss, failure, loneliness, rejection. Yet something remarkable had happened. Instead of allowing pain to harden them, pain had humbled them. Their identity no longer depended upon being admired or understood or praised. They had discovered an inner foundation that circumstances could no longer shake. This is the beginning of psychological freedom. The ego constantly asks, how do they see me? The self quietly asks, am I living truthfully? One question creates anxiety, the other creates peace. There is another misunderstanding that prevents many people from overcoming anger. They believe forgiveness means pretending nothing happened. It does not. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood ideas in psychology. Many imagine forgiveness benefits the person who caused harm. In reality, its deepest purpose is to free the one carrying the burden. Imagine holding a burning piece of coal in your hand. You keep squeezing tighter, hoping someone else will feel the pain. Who suffers? You do. Resentment functions in exactly the same way. The longer you hold it, the heavier it becomes. Many people spend years replaying old conversations inside their minds, revisiting betrayals, imagining different endings, planning arguments that will never happen. Meanwhile, life quietly continues without them. The unconscious becomes trapped in yesterday. The present moment disappears. Eventually, their entire identity revolves around an event that no longer exists. This is why forgiveness is not forgetting, nor approving, nor excusing harmful behavior. Forgiveness simply means refusing to allow the past to continue controlling your present consciousness. You release the emotional chain, not because they deserve freedom, because you do. Some people fear that forgiveness will make them weak. Again, the opposite is true. Only strength can let go. Weakness clings, weakness repeats, weakness demands revenge. Strength learns, strength establishes boundaries. Strength walks away without carrying poison inside. Never confuse forgiveness with reconciliation. Some relationships should never be restored. Some doors should remain closed. Some distances protect the soul. Wisdom does not require allowing harmful people unlimited access to your life. Compassion without boundaries eventually becomes self-destruction. Healthy boundaries are not walls built from hatred. They are doors opened by discernment. The rare individual learns that protecting inner peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Every day your consciousness receives countless influences. Opinions, arguments, negativity, fear, comparison, expectation. Without conscious boundaries, the psyche becomes overwhelmed. You begin carrying emotional burdens that never belong to you. Slowly, your own voice becomes impossible to hear. This is why periods of silence are essential. Not occasional silence, regular silence. Each day, sit quietly, without your phone, without music, without conversation. Simply observe. Notice your thoughts, notice your emotions, notice which memories repeatedly appear. Do not judge them, observe them. The observer inside you is always wiser than the emotion passing through you. At first, the mind will resist. It dislikes stillness. It prefers distraction. But if you remain patient, something extraordinary begins happening. The noise gradually settles, like muddy water left untouched. Clarity naturally returns. This is where intuition speaks, not through shouting, through quiet certainty. Most people never hear this voice because they fill every moment with stimulation, yet your deepest wisdom has always existed beneath the noise. Anger loses much of its power when inner silence becomes stronger than external chaos. The world may remain loud. People may remain difficult. Circumstances may remain unpredictable. But within you, a different center begins forming. A place that no insult can easily disturb. A place that no criticism can easily reach. A place where awareness quietly watches every emotion rise and every emotion pass. That place is where true peace begins. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must make a decision. Not about their career, not about their relationships, not even about their future, but about one simple question. Who controls my inner world? If the answer is my family, my partner, my enemies, my co-workers, my past, then your peace has already been surrendered. The greatest prison is not built from iron. It is built from unconscious reactions. Every time someone insults you and controls your emotions, they become the master of your inner world. Every time criticism steals your peace, you hand another piece of your freedom away. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change the behavior of others. They hope people become kinder, more respectful, more understanding. But the world has never worked that way. People will misunderstand you. They will judge you before knowing you. They will project their fears onto you. Some will dislike you for reasons they themselves cannot explain. Others will envy you without admitting it. And a few will attempt to disturb your peace simply because they have never found peace within themselves. If your happiness depends on changing these people,
then happiness will always remain beyond your reach.
True freedom begins the moment you realize that your greatest responsibility is not controlling the world. It is governing your own consciousness. Imagine an ancient mountain standing beneath the changing sky. Storms arrive, rain falls, snow covers its peak, powerful winds strike its cliffs, yet the mountain remains. Not because storms never come, but because it has learned how to remain rooted. Become like that mountain. Allow people's opinions to become passing weather, not permanent realities. Allow insults to become echoes, not identities. Allow disappointment to become experience, not destiny. The strongest mind is not the one that never feels emotion. It is the one that refuses to become a prisoner of emotion. There will still be moments when anger appears. You are human. There will still be moments when disappointment visits your heart. There will still be betrayal, loss, misunderstanding, and injustice. Psychological maturity does not remove these experiences. It transforms your relationship with them. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single question changes suffering into wisdom. Every difficult person becomes a teacher. Every conflict becomes a mirror. Every disappointment becomes another opportunity to strengthen your inner foundation. Soon, you stop fearing difficult people, because you understand something extraordinary. No one can truly disturb a mind that understands itself. No insult can destroy genuine confidence. No criticism can shake authentic self-knowledge. No rejection can diminish a soul that already knows its worth. This is why the journey toward peace is always an inward one. You cannot meditate your way into peace while secretly depending upon approval. You cannot read enough books to eliminate anger if you refuse to examine your own unconscious. You cannot escape suffering simply by avoiding difficult people. Wherever you go, you carry your own psyche with you, and until you understand it, life will continue presenting the same lessons in different forms, the same conflicts, the same emotional reactions, the same pain, again and again, until awareness finally replaces unconsciousness. Remember, every emotion that rises inside you is temporary. Every thought that troubles your mind will eventually pass. But the awareness observing those thoughts, that silent witness within you, has been present since childhood. It was there before the first insult, before the first heartbreak, before the first disappointment. Return to that place again and again. That is where peace has always lived. The world does not need another angry person reacting to every offense. It needs individuals whose calm presence reminds others that inner mastery is possible. Become that person. Speak less, observe more, react slower, understand deeper, forgive wisely, protect your peace without closing your heart. Because real strength is not found in winning arguments, it is found in refusing to lose yourself during them. If you can master your own mind, no person will ever truly have power over you again, and perhaps that was the lesson anger had been trying to teach you from the very beginning. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Until our next exploration of the human psyche, remember this one final truth. No one can steal your peace without your unconscious permission. The day you stop giving that permission is the day you become truly free. Thank you for listening.